Hi, Kevin Coop here, and this is FaceTime with the Content Guy. So I've been thinking about my dad's funeral, and don't worry, I'm not going to do the whole obituary eulogy thing again. I'm sure you got your fill of that last week, and once again, I thank you for your patience. Now, I've been thinking about it specifically because the priest's sermon actually offered a pretty good business lesson. I'm not sure he meant it that way, but it occurred to me as I was listening to it, this is something I can use and pass on. I look for stuff everywhere. So basically what the priest talked about was the fact that our family had received a phone call from a now retired archbishop in Connecticut as soon as he heard about my father's death. Now the priest started by saying, I have a prejudice against bishops. That's what he said. I have a real prejudice against them. Not for any specific reason other than the fact that, listen, I know they have a tough job. They have to work on things like budgets, and they have to work on infrastructure, and they have to work on a whole series of things that in his mind had very little to do with ministering to the flock. So he had a prejudice against them. But he was surprised when he learned that this particular archbishop, retired archbishop, had called the family as soon as he had learned about Dad's death. I'm actually the one who got the call. And the reason I got the call is because this particular archbishop had been a parish priest in the parish in Larchmont, New York, that I grew up in, St. John and Paul. And I remember being an altar boy when he used to say Mass. So he knew my dad. He knew him from my dad's participation in church, as well as they worked together on a thing called the Christian Family Movement. So he knew my dad and mom pretty well. So he just called up almost as soon as he heard the news to offer his condolences. Now, the priest said he was kind of surprised by that because, archbishops normally, when they make phone calls of that sort, they're making those calls to the rich and powerful because by the very nature of their job, that's the people they hang out with. Those are the important people in their world. Those are the people they reach out to in the case of making a condolence phone call. So he was surprised by the call to me about my dad. But he said upon thinking about it, it really wasn't all that surprising. He said, because some people have the authority of money and some people have the authority of power, but one of the things that my dad had was the authority of character. And he said basically the authority of character can be a really, really powerful thing. I totally agree with him on that. I think that's true when it comes to religion. I think it's true when it comes to government. I think it's true when it comes to politics. And I think it's absolutely true when it comes to business. Business people and businesses can be of good character. They can realize that they can be good and do good at the same time and do well for their companies and do well for their customers and their employees and their shareholders. There are companies that really put a high priority on that, and there are companies that do not. I think companies and business people of good character are the people I want to do business with, either as somebody who writes about them or there's somebody who is actually going to be a patron. The authority of good character is a really important thing, and I think it's the kind of thing that people in business need to focus on more. There's a lot of people of not such great character out there. I think the more that companies and people can focus on being of good character, the more they can actually differentiate themselves in the marketplace in a way that can pay real dividends down the road. Hey, listen, that was the sermon. I think it's one from which we all can learn. Anyway, that's what's on my mind this Thursday morning. And as always, I want to hear what's on your mind.